Have you ever witnessed someone's life completely transform after a single moment of defiance? That's exactly what happened when Sarah mocked Daniel, a struggling single father, claiming he couldn't please anyone. His simple response, "Wanna bet?" would change everything. If this story of resilience and unexpected triumph resonates with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more inspiring real-life stories that remind us of the extraordinary strength within ordinary people. Daniel Matthews stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, the dark circles under his eyes telling the story his mouth wouldn't. At 42, he looked a decade older, worn down by the relentless demands of raising 2 children alone while trying to keep his small carpentry business afloat. His daughter Emma was 14, navigating the turbulent waters of adolescence with all the mood swings that entailed. His son Jack, just 9, was struggling with learning difficulties that required special attention Daniel could barely provide. The morning routine was chaos as usual. Emma refused to eat the breakfast he'd prepared, claiming she was now vegan, a decision she'd apparently made overnight without telling him. Jack couldn't find his homework, which led to tears and accusations that Daniel never helped him stay organized. By the time he dropped them at school, 20 minutes late, Daniel felt the familiar weight of failure pressing down on his shoulders. "Mr. Matthews, this is the 3rd time this month," said Ms. Winters, the school secretary, her disapproving gaze making him feel like a delinquent student rather than a parent. "The principal would like to see you next week to discuss your children's tardiness." Daniel nodded, too exhausted to explain that he'd been up until 2 a.m. finishing a rush order for a client who might finally provide the steady work he desperately needed. The client who might help him afford the therapy Jack needed and the new clothes Emma kept asking for. His workshop was his sanctuary, the place where would become art under his skilled hands. Today, though, even that brought little comfort. The rent was due, and his biggest client had just postponed a major project. Daniel ran his hand over the smooth surface of the oak dining table he'd just completed, wondering if he'd have to sell it at a loss just to make ends meet. The bell above the door jingled, and Sarah Prescott walked in. Sarah owned the interior design business next door, and their relationship had always been strained. She was successful, polished, and seemed to take a particular pleasure in pointing out Daniel's shortcomings. "I need to talk to you about the noise," she said without preamble. "My clients can't hear themselves think with all that sawing and hammering." Daniel took a deep breath. "I'm running a carpentry business, Sarah. There's going to be some noise." "Well, it's affecting my business. And speaking of affecting things, your daughter was sitting outside your shop yesterday when I left." She looked upset. "Trouble at home?" The question was posed with a raised eyebrow that suggested she already knew the answer. "Emma's fine." "We're fine," Daniel said, his jaw tightening. Sarah laughed, the sound like glass breaking. "You know, Daniel, I don't understand why you insist on doing everything yourself. It's clear you can't please anyone, not your clients, not your children, certainly not the school. Have you considered that maybe they'd be better off with their mother?" The words hit like a physical blow. Emma and Jack's mother had walked out 3 years ago, deciding that family life was too restrictive for her artistic ambitions. She now lived in Paris, sending occasional postcards but no child support. Something snapped inside Daniel. Not in the way that leads to shouting or violence, but in the way that straightens a spine that's been bent too long. "Wanna bet?" he said quietly. Sarah blinked, clearly not expecting this response. "Excuse me? You heard me. You think I can't please anyone? Wanna bet on that?" His voice was calm, but there was a new steel behind it. Sarah scoffed. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Give me 3 months. If I can't turn things around, with my business, with my kids, with everything, I'll move my workshop to another location, even if it costs me more. But if I succeed, you admit you were wrong. Publicly. And you refer your clients to me for any custom woodwork they need." Sarah studied him for a moment, then smiled condescendingly. "Fine. It's a bet. Though I don't see how you're going to magically become competent after all this time." After she left, Daniel sat down heavily on his workbench. What had he just done? He had no idea how he was going to turn things around, but he knew he had to try. Not just because of the bet, but because Sarah had voiced the doubts that had been haunting him for years. That evening, instead of retreating to his workshop after dinner as he usually did, Daniel called a family meeting. Emma rolled her eyes but sat down. Jack looked worried, probably thinking he was in trouble. "I need your help," Daniel said simply. The directness of the statement caught their attention. "I haven't been doing a great job lately. As a dad, as a business owner. I've been treading water, and I think we're all suffering for it." Emma's defensive posture softened slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean I want us to work together to make things better. All of us. I want to know what you need from me, and I want you to know what I need from you." What followed was the most honest conversation they'd had in years. Emma admitted she felt invisible, that her father was always too busy or too tired to really see her. Jack confessed he was being bullied at school because his clothes were old and he couldn't invite friends over to their messy house. Daniel shared his financial worries and his fear of failing them. By the end of the night, they had a plan. Emma would help create a schedule for household chores and meal planning, incorporating her new interest in veganism in a way that worked for the whole family. Jack would organize a homework station in the living room where Daniel could help him while preparing dinner. And Daniel promised to set aside specific time each week for each child, no matter how busy work got. The next day, Daniel faced his business challenges with the same direct approach. He called his clients, both current and former, asking for feedback on his work and service. The responses were eye-opening. Many loved his craftsmanship but found him unreliable with deadlines. Others wished he would showcase his work more effectively online. Daniel reached out to a former client who ran a successful marketing agency. "I can't afford your services," he admitted, "but I'm a skilled carpenter. Would you consider a trade? I'll build the custom conference table you mentioned wanting, and you help me create a basic marketing plan and website." To his surprise, the client agreed enthusiastically. "I've been wanting that table for 2 years. And honestly, Daniel, your work deserves to be seen." Over the next few weeks, Daniel implemented changes methodically. He hired a part-time assistant, a carpentry student from the local community college who was eager for practical experience. This allowed him to meet deadlines more consistently and take on additional work. The new website, showcasing his finest pieces, brought in inquiries from higher-end clients willing to pay premium prices for quality craftsmanship. At home, the new systems were creating unexpected benefits. Emma, responsible for meal planning, discovered a genuine interest in cooking. She and Daniel spent Sunday afternoons preparing meals for the week, conversations flowing more easily over chopping boards than they ever had across the dinner table. Jack's homework station evolved into a family command center, with calendars and organizational systems that helped all of them stay on track. The house was still small, still modest, but it began to feel like a home again. Daniel used his skills to build custom storage solutions that made their limited space more functional. Emma added decorative touches, proud to show her friends the Pinterest-worthy results of their family projects. 1 month into the bet, Sarah stopped by the workshop, clearly expecting to find Daniel floundering. Instead, she found a transformed space. The workshop was organized, with clear project zones and a small but elegant showroom area displaying Daniel's signature pieces. A young assistant was carefully sanding a chair while Daniel walked a well-dressed couple through design options for their custom dining set. Sarah left without speaking to him, her expression unreadable. The school principal, expecting to reprimand Daniel about his children's tardiness, was instead presented with a report from Jack's teacher noting significant improvement in his organization and homework completion. Emma's English teacher mentioned that her recent essay about family resilience was one of the most moving pieces she'd read from a student. "Whatever changes you've made at home, Mr. Matthews, they're making a difference," the principal said. Not everything was smooth sailing. There were still arguments, still days when everything seemed to go wrong. Daniel still worried about money and sometimes stayed up too late working. But the difference was that now they faced challenges together, as a team, rather than as isolated individuals under the same roof. 2 months into the bet, disaster struck. A pipe burst in Daniel's workshop, damaging several nearly completed projects, including a large commission that represented a significant portion of that month's income. The insurance would cover the repairs eventually, but the immediate financial hit was devastating. Daniel sat amid the water damage, head in his hands, when Emma and Jack found him. "Dad?" Emma's voice was tentative. "We heard what happened." Daniel looked up, trying to hide his despair. "It's okay. We'll figure it out." Jack stepped forward, holding out a jar labeled "College Fund" that Daniel had started for him years ago. "You can use this, Dad. I can save again later." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "No, buddy. That's your future. We'll find another way." Emma sat beside him. "Remember what you told us? That we're a team now? Well, teams help each other." She pulled out her phone and showed him a social media post she'd created, showcasing his work and explaining their situation. It had already been shared dozens of times by her friends and their parents. "I didn't ask for money," she assured him quickly. "Just said you're taking rush commissions for small pieces to help recover from the flood. My friend's mom already wants to order 3 of those jewelry boxes for Christmas gifts." The next day, Sarah appeared at the temporary workspace Daniel had set up in his garage. She watched silently as he and his assistant salvaged what they could from the damaged projects. "I heard about the flood," she finally said. "That's tough luck." Daniel nodded, continuing to work. "We'll manage." "I have a client," Sarah said after another long pause. "She needs built-in bookshelves and a window seat for her home library. It's a rush job," her previous carpenter backed out. "I told her you might be able to help." Daniel looked up, surprised. "You referred someone to me?" Sarah shrugged, not quite meeting his eyes. "The bet's not over yet. But I've seen your work. It's good. My client deserves good work." The referral from Sarah led to others. Her wealthy clients, impressed by Daniel's craftsmanship and professionalism, recommended him to their friends. The small jewelry boxes Emma had promoted became popular gift items, providing steady income between larger commissions. By the time the 3-month mark arrived, Daniel's business was not just recovered but thriving. He had moved back into his repaired workshop and hired a second part-time assistant. The family's finances were stable enough that he could finally afford the specialized tutoring Jack needed and the art classes Emma had been wanting to take. Sarah arrived at the workshop on the final day of their bet, her expression guarded. Daniel was helping Jack with a small woodworking project of his own, while Emma photographed a completed commission for the website. "Looks like you've been busy," Sarah said, looking around at the transformed space. Daniel nodded. "We have." "I suppose you're expecting me to admit I was wrong," Sarah said, her voice lacking its usual edge. "Actually," Daniel said, "I wanted to thank you." Sarah looked genuinely surprised. "Thank me? For what?" "For the bet. For making me angry enough to change things. Sometimes we need someone to challenge us." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I was wrong," she finally said. "You've proven that you can please people, your clients, your children. You've built something impressive here." "We built it together," Daniel said, looking at his children. "That was the key. I was trying to do everything myself, be everything for everyone. I needed to let them be part of the solution." Sarah nodded, then reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. "This is for you. It's a high-end furniture showcase in the city. They feature artisan woodworkers. I've recommended you for their spring exhibition." Daniel took the card, speechless. "Consider it the fulfillment of my part of the bet," Sarah said. "I'm referring my clients to you, all of them." As Sarah turned to leave, Emma called after her. "Ms. Prescott? We're having a small celebration dinner tonight. For Dad's business and everything. Would you like to come?" Sarah hesitated, then smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her face. "I'd like that very much." That evening, as they sat around the table Daniel had crafted with his own hands, he looked at the faces gathered there, his children, his assistants, even Sarah, who was laughing at something Emma had said. The journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more days when he felt overwhelmed. But he was no longer facing those challenges alone. A single moment of defiance, won a bet, had changed everything. Not because of the bet itself, but because it had forced him to see what was possible when he stopped trying to carry everything on his own shoulders. As the evening wound down, Sarah pulled Daniel aside. "You know, I never really thought you couldn't please anyone," she admitted quietly. "I was jealous." "Jealous? Of what?" "Of this," she gestured around the room. "Of your family. Of the way you pour your heart into everything you create. My business is successful, but at the end of the day, I go home to an empty house. You've built something that matters." Daniel considered this. "It's not too late to build something that matters for yourself, too." Sarah smiled thoughtfully. "Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time I made my own bet with myself." As their guests departed and the children cleared the table, Daniel reflected on how far they had come. From a moment of anger and defiance had grown something beautiful, not just a successful business, but a family that had found its strength again. Sometimes, he realized, the most powerful words aren't, "I love you," or even, "I'm sorry." Sometimes, the words that change everything are simply, "Wanna bet?" If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories of resilience, transformation, and the extraordinary courage of ordinary people facing life's challenges. Remember, sometimes the greatest victories come from the moments when we refuse to accept the limitations others place on us, when we look doubt in the face and say, with quiet determination, "Wanna bet?"